We're here live, and to the left of me here is attorney extraordinaire Benton Watson, and we've already started discussing this topic. Ross, how you doing, buddy?
It's great to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
That's for you, Rick. We also may have C.J. Grisham calling in to talk about this topic as well. We've got a few different angles here, and the reason I wanted to talk about the constitutional carry is because State Representative Strickland had proposed a bill for constitutional carry. I think he's done it a couple of years in a row or whatever. A couple of times it didn't work, but it's gotten the furthest it's gotten this time. So people are looking at it, people are raising questions about it, and there's a lot of confusion in terminology. A lot of people ask me, what's the difference between constitutional as compared to open, to concealed carry? I've got my thoughts and opinions, and this is just going to be a hodgepodge of things. So ladies and gentlemen, if you got a question concerning this topic, the number here is 254-697-6633. Give us a call, give us your thoughts and opinions that have been researched, okay? So, Ross, how do you want to start this off?
Well, let's talk about the legislative process in Texas generally. Okay, so every 2 years, the legislature meets. They meet on odd years, okay, and they meet on the second Tuesday in January, every second odd year, okay? So they're meeting this year in January 8, 2019. Obviously, before the regular, and that's regular sessions, they can have special sessions that go down at any time that is called by the governor or some other important aspect that needs to be debated and voted upon. But for regular sessions, that's what we're talking about today. And before they would have these sessions, they're going to have, they're basically some kind of convention or organized meeting for that particular party, the Republican Party, Tea Party, things like that. This year, when the Republicans met, they set, a list of things that were going to be a priority list that they wanted to try to push to get laws changed and things to that effect in the legislature this year, okay, for these sessions. And so there was more than 300 topics, what might be called planks, okay, that is going to be what the party's going to be pushing for, and a lot of those obviously is going to deal with gun laws, okay. And so there has been a push, and this year it was been a priority to make a constitutional carry, so making it basically a constitutional amendment, right? An amendment to the Texas Constitution that would effectively make the Constitution your permit. And so we spoke about before, and
that just sounded good. I like that. But go ahead.
Okay, and so you don't have to go get this permitting process, a license to carry a handgun. You have the license to carry, right? You would just be able to carry by the words of the Constitution. Okay, and so we spoke about, and you guys can go look at YouTube videos. We talked about the inherent rights, people's inherent rights, and the Bill of Rights, and what the Second Amendment meant, and the interpretation from the courts. I think we get at least 2 of those, right? There's YouTube videos of, but without going into all the specifics of those, it does go to that aspect, because we have a right to bear arms, okay?
Can I pause you on that? I want to ask a clarification question. What you just said, I totally get. Is it true that the reason for licensing is because you want the weapon concealed? Whereas what you just said, the right to carry, you should be able to have the right to carry it in the open, but the special privilege is to get a license to carry concealed. Is that a true understanding of is that a clear statement that I said?
Maybe under some interpretations. I think that you've got a bunch of different views about what it would mean constitutionally to keep and bear arms, okay? And I think some would say that the permitting process in and of itself, making somebody get a license to carry, period, right, makes the right no longer a right, but a privilege.
Correct.
Okay, and so when you have to beg the government essentially for...
that's why I was saying if it was concealed, you're getting the privilege of wearing it concealed because your right was you could bear arms.
But we have to have the LTC. We have to have the license to carry it concealed.
I know, but I still am opposed to that. But then somewhere in the Texas Constitution it says they have the right to designate how it's going to be carried. So I guess I can't fight that, right?
Well, that would go to the Supreme Court's rules about you still have the right to keep and bear arms, but the states have the right to limit and regulate exactly how they're kept and born about. Okay, so But that's not what the Constitution says. Is the advocates from the constitutional carry aspect. I'm just telling you, you guys should go look. Rachel Malone is a big advocate. She has been involved in the legislature for a long time in other aspects. She's also a gun safety and gun expert on the gun laws. You can go check out Gun Owners of America. They're making a big grassroots push right now. She's got a bunch of the updates about the new laws that are being passed, the new bills, even hearings and updates. She tells you if you've got an issue that you may want to testify about or push, right? She's got educational material on here. You can contact her as well. It's a very informative website is why I talk about it. It's going to tell you about all the issues, right, to debate from either side. But obviously, so then why a constitutional? I think one big reason some people might ask is why a constitutional amendment when we could just make it a law? Well, I guess not necessarily in theory, but in my opinion, in theory, right, having a constitutional amendment would technically make it harder, right, to ignore, right, or harder to get rid of. Okay, because you're going to have the 2/3 vote. It's going to be instead of a bill, you're going to have a resolution. It's got to be a joint resolution. Okay, both sides of the legislature, the House and the Senate, right, are going to have to approve it by a 2/3 majority vote. And that's really no different than a regular law. You're going to have 2/3 majority vote. Okay, but then you're also going to have a general election, right, and people to vote on it and it be approved by a general election. So then to get rid of it, you're going to have a similar process. And so it's going to be harder, right, in theory, basically, to get rid of it.
And that's on purpose, because if it's such an important topic that we're talking about, you want to make sure it's a rock solid type of deal.
Right, especially, and not just a constitutional, right, has more emphasis, I think, than, right, a legal statutory right. Okay, it all just in and of itself, right, has that constitutional appeal. All right, and so, I mean, if you guys don't know, your state senator in this area is Senator Charles Schwertner, and then your House representative for the state of Texas, Terry Wilson, right? You can contact these people. You can go to the Texas legislature online, find their contact information, and call these people, contact them, mail them, write them, if you've got an issue to present, okay, about this topic or other topics. But so going into, I mean, I guess I already talked a little bit about, but I think some of the biggest cornerstones for wanting to get it passed is there's many other states. There's, I think, 14 constitutional carry states, everywhere from Alaska to Wyoming to, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. Okay, and you're going to have some of these states, the top 5 safest states in the nation, right, are constitutional carry states.
Is that a fact or an opinion?
That's a fact that's been cited several times.
I'm smiling because I just read something about facts and opinions, but go ahead.
Okay, so it's this. I mean, obviously, there's more to what we talked about. There's more than just statistics. There's more than just a numbers game, right? There's going to be you need to go and understand where the numbers are coming from. But based on the numbers,
let's reiterate our conversation as an example of a fact versus an opinion. Where she was looking up statistics. What's her name again?
Rachel Malone.
Rachel, and she was saying how people who are carrying don't do as many accidents as people think they do. Isn't that what we were saying? And I was saying I see a lot of things as a business owner and an instructor to the contrary, that a lot of people who use firearms are needing a lot of help.
So these are some of the issues, right? So some of the issues are if you get rid of the permitting process and you have a constitutional carry, then that means people are going to be less apt to do their training. Right. Okay, and across the board, you need to go look at some of this research. They're going to say that the individuals who are against, that should be for constitutional carry but are against it, are the ones who are the people training, right, other people in the permitting process like yourself. And nobody goes after you guys for some kind of bias. Oh, they just want to keep the permitting so they can make money. There is great arguments from your side, from your camp, and I don't mean to put you in a camp, but I'm just putting people, licensed professionals who train other people in the use of firearms, right? And especially in the permitting licensing process, right, do understand, just like I see as a lawyer, right? People come in and we go, gosh, we can't. Are these people really alive, right? Okay, and so as a lawyer, stupid people make me money, right? And so in your business, stupid people may lose you money, right? Because the whole point is for you to train these people about how to use a firearm, and if they come to you and then they're not using it right, obviously there's laws that give you right immunity to not get sued, but still you don't want one of your trainees going out there and using a firearm in such a way that reflects bad upon you.
I do want to make a statement though. When it comes to constitutional carry, I will do nothing to oppose it, and I'm not going to do anything to promote it, because I am a constitutionalist, and so I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say anything. So if the people voted in, okay. If they don't vote it in, okay. I'm just going to utilize my First Amendment right and say, if you're not going to train, shame on you, and I want to shame you to death so you will go train. That's the power we have, ladies and gentlemen. It's the First Amendment. If we can't take away a person's right, which I would never do, wear a uniform to protect it, but I would not take away a person's constitutional right to bear arms. But I sure as heck will utilize my first one to embarrass you, shame you into submission to train with that weapon.
There is evidence, and don't ask me to quote it, but you can go on these sanctioned websites and these and peer reviews, some of these journals and other people that are part of coalitions and nonprofit organizations will tell you that in a lot of these constitutional carry states, they'll quote the statistics that the training, there's not been a large effect on people going and getting training. Okay, as far as right, who would go and get training otherwise. In other words, if they were going to go get training, right, in a permitting process, those types of people are still going to get training, right, even in a constitutional carry state. Okay, and so I mean, we see that. I mean, how many people just in Aaron's gun shop? We go over there. What is it? Fridays and Saturdays. Okay, how many of those people, right, need a permit that are there training?
Well, the ones at my shop are very responsible and very well trained. So I would have to say a large percentage, a tall percentage, could do it on their own and are very proficient and very safe about it.
But I came to your shop, just like, it's been a while. I need to go back and train, technically. I was awful to begin with. I was probably one of those people, man, I was like, oh, gosh, we're really going to give this guy a weapon. So my girlfriend, the boss, just outshot me like crazy, right? She hit the bullseye like, how many times?
Oh, you let her, right?
Come on, man. Go. And then Rick Dodd is just like a pro, right?
Well, man, don't mess with him with a shotgun. That guy will tear you up with a shotgun.
No, but so I go there, I come over to test out the new 1911,
yeah.
and it's just packed in there. Okay, so, obviously, it's not going to make any difference whether it's a permitting process or constitutional carry for all those people. Those people, right, are wanting to make themselves more proficient, and those are the type of people who would get the license. Okay, and so it makes sense to say, right, people who would get licensed, right, if there's not a license, those people are still going to train, because a lot of the licensees go out and train regardless.
Here's my concern. You're going to have a lot of young bucks buying any gun that they can get their hands on with the budget they have. I'm seeing a lot of high points. Did we talk about high points? Somebody else. Whenever there's a gun search, it usually has to do with a high point.
He's making fun of me, folks.
So you're going to have a lot of people, in my opinion, are excited about the ability that they can finally carry. They're going to go get something. There's going to be the show-off factor. There's going to be the macho factor. And I don't know, man. I just see a lot of room for error. I'm not going to say there's going to be blood in the streets like everybody said about concealed carry and open carry. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say I'm all for it. Just, man, you got to practice. You got to train. Otherwise, you're foolish. You're going to hurt somebody. It's probably going to be yourself, and you're going to have to spend a lot of money, and you will never be able to buy another high-point pistol in your life.
Golly. Man, I'm glad I got my boots on today. But there are almost, I think, 30 other states that allow unlicensed open carry. Okay, and so when you look at the vast majority of states, and then you look at Texas, okay, you say we're supposed to be one of the top gun advocating states that there is, and we're not. we're not following in line, and so we are really not in line with what the constitutional language is. We're really not in line with what our party position states that it is. Really not in line with what, right, our societal position, right, usually implies that it is. Okay, and so I think that that's one of the pushes, is to make us, legally speaking, from a constitutional standpoint, fall in line with the rest of those states. And there's been good reason, like I said, statistically, from a safety standpoint, why those states have had a good record as far as the constitutional carry issue. They have had a good record for safety. They have had a good record for law enforcement, right, approval. They have had a good record when you're talking about the training process, people being equipped, right, in the carry of their firearms. They have had a good record in the murder rates. In all those states that we talked about the constitutional carry, maybe, I don't know about maybe one or two. I just don't know. I'm not saying that it's bad. But in most of those states, the murder rate has dropped. Nationally, the murder rate has dropped, even from the standpoint of getting, right, licensing. So since during the Obama administration, more handgun licensing went out, okay, the murder rate has dropped. I think what the statistics say is 16%. So, I mean, it just...
something's in my head I want to ask you real quick before I forget it, because I have a tendency to do that. I got a brain like a sieve. The license to carry out in the open has rules in the license to carry rules that says it has to be in a shoulder holster or a hip holster.
Correct.
If you have constitutional carry, doesn't that eliminate that? Because if it's a constitutional right, you cannot be held by laws off of a license to carry. Only the license to carry person would have to obey those. And then if constitutional carry did come, in your opinion...
Those aren't the license to carry laws. Those are in the Texas Penal Code.
But if you have a license to carry, the law states that you must have it in a shoulder rig or a hip holster if you're going to wear it in the open.
I think that you're still going to have those. That in my opinion, those are appropriate state regulations of the right to keep and bear arms. Okay, I would think my personal opinion on that matter would be, I don't want anybody just waving a pistol around without being in a holster, right, and out without having. This goes back to training, without having some, right, legitimate use of the tool. Right? What is your legitimate use of a tool to have it in your hand, right, at a gas station? That right there would appear as a threat. Okay, and so to say that the state laws wouldn't apply to the holster requirement would not apply because of a constitutional carry is absurd. It would be absurd in my opinion.
Let me clarify what I said. I totally agree with what you just said. Totally. I'm saying, does it have to be specifically shoulder holster, hip holster? Can it be other forms? For example, let's say you had an AR pistol. I wouldn't do this. I'm just throwing it out there. AR pistol, it almost looks like a short barrel rifle. Can you strap it around your shoulder? Are these going to be things also that would be forced under, like we just talked about, a hip holster or shoulder holster? Or can, with constitutional carry, there be more liberality of how you would carry your
They probably should do some amendments to the penal code if constitutional carry is passed. But if they didn't, which the legislature many times, right, does not do what they should do as far as making amendments and modifications to other statutes, when they amend or change or add other statutes, they don't do, right, to make them very consistent many times that we've talked about here.
Yeah, that was a mouthful you just said, but I understood it.
Right, okay,
better,
so many times the legislature has inconsistent legislative provisions, okay, is what I'm saying. Is what we've seen many times, and so that yes, they should update, I think, modify, amend some of the statutes that talk about, right, carrying weapons, possessing weapons, whether it's open carry or not, whether it's any kind of weapon. They should amend those based on the constitutional carry if it passes. Mm-hmm. But if they didn't, I would assume that courts would interpret those the same way as they've done right now. They would interpret, right, the penal code and the carry provisions in the same manner as if the person was licensed to carry.
I can see that.
Okay, so I don't know that would change anything.
I think it's going to be a case-by-case thing. Say, hey, what's the deal? And like you said, if down the road they may amend it to where it's a little bit looser, less restrictive.
But you always have a good criminal defense lawyer is colorful in his arguments. Maybe makes the case that, hey, it doesn't apply to my client because
Yes, sir.
This is a constitutional carry
Attorney
issue,
extraordinary,
not a
yes.
license to carry. Right. By the same token, you have colorful prosecutors who would make a more strict argument for the other side. So I mean, I think it would be somewhere in the middle, and that would be to apply it the same.
Okay. So we talked about what it means and how does it different from what we have now. That's kind of obvious. Any misunderstandings of the term constitutional carry? I think we clarified that, didn't we?
Any misunderstandings
Standing
of the
what,
term?
What that actual term is, constitutional carry.
I think the Constitution being your permit explains it all, right? You don't need another license or permit to carry, okay? And the resolution talks about the right to carry conceal and carry open. Would it just support one of these? Maybe in the end, maybe. Would they say it just supports the right to carry concealed or the right to carry open? We don't know yet. But
how do you think it would apply to an officer on the beat when you've got a license to carry person with open carry? You know, the challenge of, hey, are you licensed for this? How would law enforcement go about doing this now if you got a whole bunch of Joes and Janes running around the street with open carry?
I think this is actually one of probably the three good arguments for the other side. I'm not saying that it's a winning argument, but it definitely is one that at least has credibility, unlike the ones that say, oh, if we do constitutional carry, there's going to be gunfire in the streets.
Right.
Okay, it's the Wild West type thing.
It hasn't happened yet.
And
it's not gonna
like
happen.
we said, Vermont has had constitutional carry for decades, centuries, since the beginning of the Republic. And so, and there's been no problems in Vermont. It's the safest state in the Union. So that right there.
Yeah, but I had made a comment about that. Do you think because of states like that, the mental attitude of the residents who live there and the upbringing of those people have this understanding of it, whereas in some other states that may have been restricted and are now just getting the openness of being able to carry, don't have that familiarization, knowledge, experience, and wisdom on how to carry it and train with it properly?
I mean, obviously that would be a good hypothesis, a good assumption to make. I don't have any. I've never lived in Vermont. I may have traveled through there one time.
A lot of trees.
Yeah, but I've never been there. I don't have the statistics on the social thought scene, so to speak, and so I don't really have enough knowledge to speak on that. But I think it's definitely right an assumption that can be made, right, based on some evidence that obviously this is something that they've continued to support since it's lasted so long. But as far as your law enforcement, right, one key aspect that you have to remember is law enforcement goes into a stop every time, assuming that there is some kind of threat. Okay, and so
which would be wise.
Okay, and so to say that whether or not you can constitutionally carry is going to make a difference, right? I think if it makes a difference, it's very little, because a police officer is already going to go into a situation, right, with safety for himself as the primary concern.
Right.
Okay, in traffic stops, right, they account for more police deaths than any other incident, right, in law enforcement. Okay, so in every traffic stop, even if it's for speeding or a seatbelt, they're going into there thinking that this is a dangerous situation, okay, and I need to be on my P's and Q's and watch for this person's use of weapons, a furtive movement that could be perceived as some type of threat, okay, perception of threat, okay. They're going to be looking.
Listen, right?
They're going to be looking. They're going to be looking for those things regardless. All right, and so to say they're not going to know whether there's a weapon or not it really makes no difference, because they're never going to know that, and the only thing that makes a difference is having a license to carry. But the license to carry people are the most law-abiding citizens there are, so it really doesn't make their threat level. It doesn't change the calculus. I think, in my opinion, I think it'd be good to hear from somebody like Chief Dixon on the matter to see if it would make a difference to him. But
Chief, if you're listening, give us a call real quick.
There's also the argument that there are statistics that the minorities are targeted, right, with the unlawful possession of firearm statutes. And so that's not necessarily that police are intending to be racist or anything to that effect, but it just has this effect, this tendency to have a detrimental effect on the minority population, that they get charged a lot more for these unlawful carry, maybe because of some systematic bias, maybe because of just some kind of something there that makes that that group more targeted through these laws. And so if you have a constitutional carry, the advocates say that it levels the playing field, and that you're not going to have somebody being targeted just because there's a weapon, right, on that person. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yes.
And you're going to be really going after the people who unlawfully, right, use the weapons, or people who are not supposed to have it, like felons, things to that effect, right? You're going to be more targeting those people, which is the people who you should be looking at, because they're the criminals who ignore the law regardless.
That's right.
Okay.
We ignore the law regardless. That is why we don't take the right away from the law-abiding citizen. We arm them so that they can defend themselves. Hey, what's the difference? What does it take to get a national carry? Why can't I just go wherever the heck I want to go with a firearm, barring prisons, correctional facilities, polling places, and all that kind of stuff? Why can't I just go around? What's people's problems, man?
So I think that's why you have the states making the push for all of this, is because our national right to carry was the Second Amendment, but the national right to carry, okay, has been limited, right, through the courts, through other lobbyists, through other political action committees, through other.
I must admit, Ross, I am ignorant on this. How the Second Amendment gets trumped, that wasn't a pun there, by the state of Texas Constitution saying they can decide how you're going to carry it. I don't understand how that works. Is it in the Constitution that it says the states can make their own? Because I'm a little rusty on that.
Yeah, things that's not specified in the Constitution reserved to the states and to the people respectively. Okay, so and that's what the courts were saying essentially, is like, and that's why we haven't necessarily incorporated the Second Amendment to be right apply across the board as a federal, right? Okay, that's more complicated. Let's not go there.
Okay, we're not gonna go there.
Okay,
that's
for another show. We have to redo the other show that we did, right, on the court's interpretation and Scalia's opinion. But what we need to look at is the courts have said that yes, the Second Amendment applies, for sure it applies. Okay, and states can't take it away, but states have the right to regulate how they're kept and how those arms are, or how we bear those arms and how we keep those arms can be regulated by the states. And so this is the state's response to that, saying we believe in the Second Amendment. We believe in our citizens' right to carry. And so here's why we're doing this, and here's why we're passing these constitutional amendments to make it that much stronger. And in Texas and in this state, right, we want you to know that the Second Amendment applies here with full force and effect. And I think another reason for the permitting and training process is there's still going to be the permitting process. They're not going to get rid of the permitting process here. And one big reason for that is reciprocity, right? Traveling across state lines. Because right now, just being able to possess your firearm in Texas with a license would not necessarily allow you, right, to travel to Louisiana, to travel to, right, Oklahoma, to travel to these other states, or to go and possess a firearm in these states.
Didn't even think of that. Yep.
Okay, and so people are still going to want to do the permitting process, and so that they can have their firearm in other states.
Yep. Good point. Totally forgot.
And so it also means that they're going to have to keep training with you.
Right. But those are going to be a limited few, because there's going to be a majority, unless they're doing traveling or they're more serious about it. From what I see, I know your statistics on this website.
And so no, it's not just this website. I mean, I've looked across several, and they're going to have statistics too at some point, posted probably on the Texas Legislature online, right? Which you can go look at and pull the bill history and look at the testimony that's being presented. You can pull the films. I often do this, right, when I'm trying to argue or figure out exactly what a statute meant for my argument to the judge in court, and you can do the same thing. You can see the testimony that was presented, the arguments that were presented by the different legislators, and to see exactly what their intent was going into, right, this bill, or in this case, this resolution.
Extremely informative, Ross. We're running out of time. Why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and what you can do for them, okay?
Well, thanks, Rick Dodd, for sponsoring the show. Respect your rights, or
respect for you.
Respect for you. Okay. Yeah, and Again, you can contact me at 105 East Main Street here in Cameron. You come by Big Milk Cow on the side of the building. If you want to make an appointment in Houston or Brazos County area, you can give us a call at 254-605-4140. That's 254-605-4140. We love to talk about new topics on the show. A lot of listeners give us those new topics. Feel free to email me at benton@watson.legal. That's benton@watson.legal too if you had any questions about what we talked about today. Right. Also, just make sure you leave your phone number when you do email me so that I can call you. Sometimes I can't always email you back.
And once again, I want to thank Copeland & Dodd Krebs Law Firm. Rick Dodd, thank you very much. Major sponsors to the program. Without them and the other sponsors, we couldn't stay on the air. So make sure if you have a challenge or a problem to check out them. And
I was going to say, I forgot. I was going to point out, there are also a couple of bills that are up for the storage of firearms. Some of those are being opposed by the Republican Party. Some of those are being advocated by it. I think those are going to be important for different people, especially at condominium complexes where they can possess their firearm and how those firearms are stored. There's going to be some advocates to say that we should have to store our weapons in any government facility. Okay, I think you guys should go look at those. We'll talk about those at a later date. I just want to make you aware. Also, there's some toll road stuff, and there's also some bills that I'm probably for that are going to be talking about decriminalization of possession of small amounts of marijuana.
I agree.
So there you go.
It's always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure.
guys.
Excellent segment. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see it again, probably Tuesday, the video will be on YouTube. Go to aaronsgunshop.com, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and check them all out. So until next week, Ross, you take care of yourself. We'll see you.
All right, thank you, man.
All right, take a break. We'll be back.